right, good morning, you guys. How's everybody doing today?
Good.
Good, I'm glad to hear that. As we talked about at the end of our last week, we're jumping into a new unit today. It's going to be on point of view. What do you guys know already about point of view? Do you guys have any definitions that you've developed on your own, that you've learned in other classes? James?
I know that there's different types.
Different types? Do you know what types there are?
At least first person and third person.
Yes, we've got those. Today we will not be focusing on them. We're actually going to be looking at the author's point of view. So we're going to take a look at these two pictures. I want you to think about these questions. I'll give you a couple minutes to kind of develop your thoughts, and then we're going to dive right into a discussion on it. And you guys can just go ahead and put a thumbs up whenever you've developed your thoughts all the way. All right, are we all good? Alrighty, so who wants to share something that they've noticed about one of these pictures, both of them combined? Olivia?
There's two characters.
Good. Were you gonna?
They both are trying to be saved.
Good, that's a really, really good point you have there. Were there any other points made?
Based off the third point, I would think that each of them would talk about their struggles on from where they are, but they would see this other person coming to save them.
Yeah, good. We'll get to that in a second. Hope, what were you gonna say?
It sort of looks like the water with the boat goes in different directions depending on the point of view.
Oh,
Like if it's going towards the land, it's going that way, but when it's going on this side, it's going that way.
that's really interesting. That's a good observation. So, would you say that these two men are in similar situations as each other? Yeah, they're both isolated, they're both seeking help. So then that brings us to our next question. What do you guys see that is different between these two pictures or situations? Olivia?
They're both looking for something different. Like the guy in the boat is looking for land, and then the guy in the land is looking for a boat.
Great. All right. And then that brings us to our last question that Jake touched on a little bit. So say these men, they were saved. They got home to their families. They sat down with their family and they said, the craziest thing happened to me today. What do you think they would say? Jalen?
Well, it's kind of funny because we don't know if either of them are going to be saved because it looks like, the guy on the boat has been searching for a long time for land and he finds this little speck of land in the middle of the ocean. And the guy on the land has been looking for a boat, but I don't think either case might necessarily save them, but at least they'd be stranded together.
Okay, so say that. Say the man on the boat makes it to the land and he's going to share his story with this man that he just met on the land. Do you think their stories of the isolation they've been through, the struggles they've been through, do you think they'd be different?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, do you guys have any examples of what you think they would say?
They might, I don't know, they might think when they're first meeting that they're going to be saved and then realize that both of them are just going to be stuck on this little speck of land. So, I don't know, I really like this person.
Yeah, no. Our boatman, he might pull up and be like, man, this has been the worst 312 days of my life. I can only eat fish. All the water I have is salty. It's horrible. And landman might be like, well, it wasn't so bad for me. I was stranded here for 312 days too, but I had fruit from my tree. They were coconuts. There was water in them. I really didn't struggle that bad. I was just lonely. James, were you going to add something?
I was going to say, I find it highly unlikely that they would talk, just because I think the man in the boat would be a lot more desperate and would just go after the other man.
You just think they'd brawl it out? Just eat each other?
Well, maybe not the guy on the land. I just feel like
It's just a very dark part.
Yeah.
the guy in the boat, because he doesn't have water, Like, I think the need for survival would have kicked in by now.
Okay, you might be right on that one. We'll see. We'll take a look. Okay, so point of view. What we were just looking at, we were looking at the perspectives of two different people experiencing a pretty similar situation. So what point of view is? It's basically the eyes or the glasses that you're looking at your experience through. It's going to be different for every single person. That's just a given. Even in the classroom right now, you guys are all sitting here, you're all being taught the same lesson. Jake might be bored out of his mind. Jalen might be so excited about this. She might just love point of view. She can't wait to figure out what's coming next. Olivia might be back there confused what day it is, what class she's in. And that is going to affect the way that you remember it, the way you might teach it further on, the way that you're going to look at the stories that we read. Next, we have what is the author's point of view. So, like James said earlier, usually when we think of point of view, we think of first person, third person, omniscient, those types of things. Today, we're just going to be looking at the author's point of view. So what this is, it tells readers how the author feels about the topic. It's going to include their opinions and beliefs. They can do this in many different ways through their writing. When you are looking for the author's point of view, you really want to think about the author's purpose. Are they trying to inform you, teach you? Are they trying to persuade you or change your mind on the subject? Or are they just trying to simply entertain? Do they just want to create something enjoyable? And that's going to affect the ways that they show their point of view throughout their writing. And that brings us to our question right down here. Do you guys think that the point of view of the author is only evident in fiction, nonfiction, both? James?
I think in fiction it's more of a author's point of view, but I think in nonfiction it would be the author's point of view, but it would also just be called bias.
Right.
Because I think everyone has bias.
Okay, so in a piece of fiction, what do you think the author's point of view, how would that come through? What things would show that? Hope?
Sort of like the themes or the motifs that are in it. So what is the theme? Romeo and Juliet, like star-crossed lovers, you can kind of know that Shakespeare doesn't really believe in the idea of love at first sight. He thinks that star-crossed lovers are just they're doomed.
Good, that is a really, really great comparison. Do we have any other ideas? No? Oh,
Maybe the kinds of characters.
yeah, that's good. Yeah, so can you elaborate on that a little bit? What do you mean, the kind of character?
I guess it kind of goes back to what Hope just said, what kind of things they believe in.
Good.
Characters.
And then James?
Okay, well first I have to flip things. My first question is, are we talking about nonfiction fiction? Or nonfiction, nonfiction?
Whatever you want it to be. Fiction, nonfiction, fiction, or nonfiction.
Great. So my thing is what they add. I think that can show a lot of what a writer thinks about a certain subject with the things that they leave out. So for example, if they were, I don't know, a music major and they were writing on nursery rhymes and such, negating the fact that a lot of nursery rhymes have racist undertones and just leaving that part out and saying, oh, they're really good, they're good for teaching kids and stuff, that's bias. It's not teaching the entire story.
Great. And did you say you had 2 points? Or was the
Oh,
first
that was
question? Okay, good. Yeah, you answered that perfectly. In nonfiction, if you're reading a history book, for example, our history books in the United States look a lot different than history books in some other countries, just by what's included, what's left out. And that does show the author's point of view. They're seeing it from the view of an American. Whereas in Europe, they're seeing, say, World War, whatever, well, we probably have pretty similar views. But they're seeing a different perspective of it. Okay, great. All right, so then we're going to look at a couple questions. How do authors show their point of view? How do they get that through? And now we're going to look at it from readers' perspective as well. How are we as readers able to identify when the author's point of view is really shining through? So a couple of these were touched on a little bit in our discussion earlier. We have what characters say, feel, or do. I think Kara brought that point up. So if we have a character who goes through some event, they're very upset about it, that can show how the author feels about that particular event. If we have two characters who are fighting over a sandwich, whatever, and say the author is making fun of that, it can show that the author feels that petty fights not worth it. Are there any questions on that? No? Good. Okay, next we have problems and conflicts present in the writing. This can include even nonfiction, like James was saying. So we've got conflicts, we've got wars. In history books, they're portrayed differently, and that can really show the way that the author is viewing the subject. And then how certain places, events, objects, or people are represented. So say we're reading a fiction novel. There's this big giant school, glamorous, just like decked out to the nines, like got fountains in front of it. Everyone's wearing their nice pristine uniforms. That's going to show that the author has like a pretty respectful view of schools. They had a very good experience with schools. They think schools are like a very good thing. Are we good on that? Okay. And now we're going to have an activity that is going to be you guys in the place of an author. So we've got Becky and Addison were best friends since kindergarten. Recently, Becky got her first boyfriend. Now she never wants to hang out with Addison and do all the things they used to love. Becky spends all of her time with her new boyfriend, Mark. Addison got a new best friend, Lindsay, who Becky does not like. They got into a huge fight and have not spoken to each other since. So what we're going to do now, we're going to partner up. Each of you are going to take the role of either Becky or Addison. So we're going to have 4 Beckys in the room, 4 Addisons, and you're going to write from their perspective the situation, what happened that you and Addison are not friends anymore. It's just going to be a short paragraph, but the important part, you are not going to talk to your partner before you start writing. It's just based off of the information that's present on the screen. You guys are both presented with the same situation, the same information, and we're going to kind of see how your own perspectives play into this. So we'll have James and Jalen together, Brittany and Krista, Kiara, Hope, and then Jake and Olivia. You guys can choose whether you want to be Becky, Addison amongst you. Another key element for this, for Becky, you're going to be writing to your audience of Mark, your new boyfriend. And then for Addison, your audience is going to be Lindsay.